Welcome back to a family business podcast. Today we are going to talk about the process of getting your home on the market or selling your home. So we're going to start this podcast out by going right to Andrea.
Wait, this podcast is gonna be the shortest podcast ever. I know what you do to list your house. Don't you know?
No, what do you do?
Well, first you go on to Zillow or one of those websites and you find what they say the value is.
This estimate.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, you do one of those automated valuation, and then you go down to the K&K or your local hardware store and you get one of those signs.
For sale by owner signs.
And you just write your phone number on it, put for sale, and then you get your iPhone out, take some pictures, and you post it on like Marketplace or I don't know. Where else could we post it?
You've forgotten a very essential step in this whole thing.
What is it?
One, you don't respond within 24 hours of someone asking to see your house. And two, you probably say, we can't show until probably like 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah. The only time we're available for showings. Yeah, that's the other thing. On that sign, make sure you put on there that the only time that you can show homes is when you're home from work. So 7 p.m. to, I think, 8 p.m. we can look at homes because then it's bedtime for my kids.
Very limited hours.
Yeah, and then on the weekends, we're not home. We travel for sports, so we can't show it on the weekend either. And you're done.
And that's it.
Golden. We're done.
And
podcast.
Voila. Sells, right? Yeah. Okay. In all seriousness, so we'll start with Andrea. So if I am a seller and I decide that I want to sell my home, what's the first step?
Well, you have been a seller.
Have been?
Twice. Right?
Yes.
And really, for us, I think this is going to be funny, and this is really not what you should do as the first step, but maybe it is what you should do as first step. You should get a storage unit, or you should clean out your basement and take everything to the shred place or the donation center. No, I'm just kidding. You should definitely do that, though. That's what we did. No, the first thing you should do, honestly, is probably interview some realtors. So if you don't have a realtor that you worked with previously, I would go online, interview some realtors, or I highly recommend going to open houses. That's how we actually personally, when we bought a residence in a different state, that's how the first realtor, no, we had 3, but that's another story. That's how we found our first realtor, was through open houses. And so I would do that. So you get kind of an estimated value of, have them come in, look at your property. They'll give you a range of what your house might be worth. It's really hard to determine what the actual price would be until it's like time to list and you're ready and you went through market prep. By market prep, I mean, your realtor is going to advise you on things you should or shouldn't do that could increase your home's value, or if you don't do them, they're going to decrease your home's value and make it sit in the market longer. Should also talk to your trusted lender. Because if you're going to move somewhere else, or if you're buying another home, based upon that range that your realtor is giving you, you should be able to determine what you can buy in your new home.
Let's go back to the first step here. So
interview realtors?
Yes. So when you say interview realtors, so do I just randomly go online, research, ask around? What's the easiest way?
Well,
if I've never sold a home before.
Well, again, I feel like, this is just my opinion, I feel like a good way to meet some realtors is to go to open houses and just kind of see, even if you research people online, I think you should go to open houses.
And
maybe
meet them in person.
Yeah, right. Or you just call them and you do a couple interviews. But you could also reach out to friends and family, and I wouldn't just ask them, this is one of my pet peeves, is, do you know a realtor? No, have you worked with a realtor that you liked that you would recommend? Because, what's the stat, PT? How many realtors does the average person know? Is it 9?
Oh, goodness. There's an average person knows 8 realtors.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
So if you call your friends or family, ask if they know a realtor, they probably know a realtor.
Well, exactly. And most of the time, usually it's a family or friend, right?
Yeah.
So obviously there's a little bit of incentive to recommend this.
Well, if they don't, are they their friends and family?
Well, that's another topic too. Yes.
But honestly, I don't, and this is, we're going to take a little detour here for a second. I don't think that you should just hire someone who is your friend or your family member because they're your friend or your family member as a realtor. And I think that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, and some people get upset when their friends or family don't hire them. But there's multiple reasons for that. Number one, I think it makes it a little bit different dynamic, especially if the agent is newer in the business and doesn't have the confidence that they gain from more years in the business, because they're going to have a harder time telling you what you don't want to hear. The longer you've been in the business, or the more experience you have, or the more you've shadowed someone or worked with your mentor or whatever, you're really going to learn a lot of those things, and you're going to be able to really give it to them straight, because that's so important in hiring someone to sell your home. More than anything else, you want a realtor that's going to tell you all the things that you don't want to hear, rather than you list your house and then all the buyers tell you all the things that you don't want to hear, and now you've just lost the best time frame to sell your house, and your house can sit in the market and sell for less money.
Well, and for a lot of realtors, probably some of the most difficult transactions usually occur with friends and family, because you don't want to hurt feelings, right?
Correct.
And that's a tough threshold to surpass. Sometimes it's like, and they don't have a threshold usually either, because they feel like that, well, one, they expect probably, you obviously should be giving the equal amount of service to everybody across the board, but there's more expectations coming from the other side. So, you should be available at 11 p.m. In some people's thoughts, right? I mean, that's one little antidote to that. And then another reason to kind of, if you're struggling to find realtors and you really don't want to go out to open houses and stuff, just look online. You'll see the true definition of people. Now, that's why it's important also to interview people, because yes, okay, we'll see that this person, I feel like we would be a good fit together. And then you sit down and talk and really see if that's the truth. But yeah, go out and just kind of do your own research.
Well, and to that point, PT, it's funny. If you know a realtor, like let's say you're moving to a different area and you have a trusted realtor in the area you live, or a family member, right? If you research realtor, well, first of all, you could ask them for a recommendation. But let's say that you research realtors, or you've been given some names in an area where you're moving to. Ask your local realtor friend or your family member realtor friend to research them online, because we can sniff through the BS pretty quickly.
Can't tell.
Like top producer. Producer of what?
Agree,
Babies?
though, most of the wouldn't you agree most of the time, though, and not just real estate, but anything, if someone who has used them in the past, and they've done a good job, that's an easy way, right? I mean,
100%.
But the problem is, like, if you've never sold a home before, maybe a lot of your friends have never done it before either, or maybe you live in a home where your mom and dad bought it 25 years ago, and that agent's no longer in the business. But I do like, just keep your options open.
Yeah, and I really agree with you, PT, especially back in the day, it was more just websites, right? Yeah. So people could just post whatever they wanted, and that's why we laugh at
Everybody looked like a glamour realtor.
We would go to these trainings, and people would laugh because they'd say, does your profile say top realtor, or top producer? Like, every single person says that. Right. I mean, give me the definition of top producer, top realtor.
That's a pretty wide range.
My favorite question that sometimes I get asked is how long have you been in the business? Yeah. Well, okay, here's how long I've been in the business, but let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Well, the great part is that question is
getting more houses, though. Each year you've been in the business, and some realtors have been in the business for a long time.
But that's easier every year now. Right? So you're like 3 years. Well, actually, I've been intern for, you can literally use those years too, right? Well, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, he knows what he's talking. And longevity does not mean that you're good. Like that's the funniest thing that I've ever heard, is there are people that think because they've been in the business for 25 years, that they're better than somebody that's been in the business for 1 year. It depends on how you work your business.
Yeah, and are you a producer?
So don't just pick the agent that has the most experience.
But and then at the other end of the stick too, I mean, it just depends on what you're really looking for and what you really need for your house to sell. Are you looking for someone to have clear communication with you all the time? Are you looking for someone that's going to work hard and do the work that needs to be done? Typically, younger agents that, after you kind of make sure that they're well versed and they
know what they're doing,
know what they're doing, are going to give you 100% effort, because they're motivated, they're
building their business.
Exactly. Yeah. So years really don't.
Yeah. And you can spend that anyway. Like, for newer agents, there's that I have the time for you. Whereas somebody that has, which doesn't happen anymore, but somebody that has 25 listings may not have the same amount of time. That's how I used to always do it, right?
Oh,
And
we
so-
have people use that against us. So
Yeah.
we would literally, I can remember probably in our prime, when we were selling 100 plus homes a year and, 35, 40 million and just you and I, right? I can remember we would interview for a listing and there was a couple
Do you have enough time to do this?
Yeah, you have enough time. And we very rarely, and I don't mean this here, but we very rarely didn't get a listing.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on fire in our prime, knew what we were doing, very well versed, and had most of our clients were referrals from
Yeah.
other people. So very rarely. But every now and again, and every once in a while, okay, well, what was the deciding factor? Well, so-and-so that I talked to, they just said, you're just so busy that they said that they only have a couple listings and they have more time for me.
Yeah.
Well,
So
shame
just
on
do
you
your
anyway.
research, interview the agent, and even if, as I always like to say, even if you're going to just interview one agent, like that you probably want to use this person, at least have them show you what they do. You
Yes.
want to make sure, even though you've heard everything great about them, you want to know what their game plan is. So, all right, so that's step one is that you interview the agents, right?
Yep.
PT had something else to
Oh,
add.
yeah. Yeah. So you've picked your agent. This is the person that's going to sell your house. I think the most important step for a lot of sellers that kind of gets overlooked is, okay, here's a list of the stuff that I'm going to be doing to my house to make it to the bottom line that I want to get to. Well, pump the brakes a little bit because some of the stuff that you might be doing is not going to benefit you.
And how many times have we been told, I need to do a few projects and then I'll have you come over? And I always say, wait a second.
We have the best
Go ahead.
story on PT.
No, it bless everybody's heart, but either the projects are not done well, or it's like, why did you choose a color? Like the biggest thing is that the majority of people that are going to buy your house probably aren't going to like what you do. Okay, so if you're going to spend $5 to $10 grand in carpet and paint, hold the phone.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at. If this is the bottom line you need, we'll just price it accordingly,
Yep.
and then that person can do whatever they
And you
want.
don't get dollar for dollar out of everything that you put in your house.
Yeah.
And I really think a lot of people think you do.
And it depends on the market. So to what PT said, there are some markets and some price points where you have to do those things to make yourself marketable in
Right.
that price point market.
Right.
But there are certain price points and markets where that's going to make no difference whatsoever. So you're just wasting your money. So I have a story on that though. So Brad, I don't know if I say his name, you'll know. So we had a friend from church that Brad served on a board with that wanted to sell his Bettendorf condo several years ago.
Oh, I remember this.
And
one.
it-
And had a little shag carpet.
And he had, it was like a tri-level condo. He wanted to get into a condo that was one level. He's getting a little bit older. And so, he said, you're going to sell my condo when it's time, whatever. This is probably 10 years ago now, at least. We're like, okay. So we'd run into him at church because he said he was ready to go. And we'd actually already found his place that he was moving to. He'd already bought that. And he kept saying, well, I just have a few more things I want to do. We're like, no, we should really just come over and advise you on it. Oh, no, I have a few more things. I mean, he probably said it 4 times. Finally, okay, I'm ready. Come on over. I'll just give you the abbreviated version of the tour.
The blue paint.
And the wallpaper. And I put this new wallpaper here. And then my painter said I should put the wallpaper here.
Seafoam.
And then I did this accent wall here. And literally, okay, so 2 things. God bless, we have great painters that we use. But that painter just obviously wanted a job and to make some money. But the worst thing is we had to actually tell this client. And we did because, again, going back to that, I mean, we're going to tell you the things that are hard to hear, but that's what you need to hear because it's going to affect you. You need to bring that painter back. He just got another job because he needs to remove all that wallpaper and he needs to repaint the walls.
That painter knew what he was doing.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
2 jobs for one, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he was like, really? We're like, yes, this is why you should have called us first. We would have advised you what to do. Because at the end of the day, what you like may not be what someone else likes.
That's right.
You want to appeal to the most amount of buyers possible. And the person who's going to be best able to advise you on that is your realtor that is experienced or the stager that they utilize. We have a stager that's on our payroll that our clients, because we're a full service, listing agent. So we're going to defer to them and we're going to make you the recommendations to make sure that you're if you're putting money in, you're maximizing what you're doing to market your home. And if you don't need to do that, we're going to tell you.
Why would you waste your money?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, going back to, there's one story I want to tell because I feel like this is a very important story to tell in regards to your friends and family. So, and Brad's going to know exactly who this is. And if this person has to be listening to this podcast, then they're going to know who they are. So earlier on, I think I was in the first few years of you joining in the business. I could look back. I think it was 2008 because I remember that's when their new house was built. Client from the club where you golf at, contacted us to sell their property. And we went into it, nice home, but definitely they had like 3 boys and one daughter, two dogs, little wear and tear. And we let a lot of it slide because the husband, gave some pushback about, well, I don't really need to change that carpet. I don't really need to paint those walls. And it was like a $600,000 house at the time. And we were like, Brad he really doesn't want to do it. And I gave in and you gave in. Worst mistake we ever made. It was the biggest lesson in our real estate career at that time. Forever. And guess what? He still ended up having to replace the carpet and do the paint. But that's what he finally had to do in order to get the buyer pool back in the house and get it sold. Yeah. So having the tough conversations up front, if you don't get the listing because of it, then you don't get the listing, right? But it was more embarrassing. We were concerned about them as a friend and upsetting them then. Well, how tough do you think those conversations were to have with that friend 6 months after his house was on the market and we've dropped the price and he still has to invest the money into it? So that's my only lesson on that.
Yeah. No, that's a great story there. So after we get past the staging part, which is so important, like you see a lot of people, because I'm getting into pictures next.
He's such an expert at all this.
Yes. When we get into staging, it's so important to stage the property correctly that if you don't stage it correctly, the pictures are not going to look good. And we've all seen homes that were not properly staged, and the pictures are just awful. So, Andrea, because you're...
Is this like my podcast or what?
Kind of, yeah. If you're more on the staging part of it, which you are...
PT's getting better. He's went to some of his listings and sent me pictures. He's listened well. At some of the smaller listings that we don't bring in the professional stager, the less expensive ones, PT will be like, hey... Because we have some of our own little staging things in our little storage unit. And PT will be like, did I put this and this and that?
Yeah. But it's important, even for every property that you list, you should stage it somehow, right? So if it's vacant, add some plants, do all...
Not real ones.
Not real ones. Just to warm things up a little bit. And explain why it's so important. Like, what is it about pictures? Like, if we would... You guys can't. Yeah, you can see our.
If you're watching us on YouTube, which nobody does,
you'd never show your property the way that we have it right now. Why does it look so much different in pictures than it does when you're there live?
Well, pictures. Something that's a normal size in person doesn't look that. It just looks cluttered in pictures. Yeah. But the other thing is that. Going back to again, you want the house to appeal to the most amount of buyers that it can. So therefore, you really have to. You may love the way it looks, but do you walk into everybody's house that's your friend, and do you love the way that their house is decorated? Right. So again, it's going back to relying on that realtor's expertise, that's experience, or the stager that they bring in, to make sure that you're setting your house up so that it appeals to the most amount of people. It's funny. Another story is we have literally had, and we take our pictures seriously. I mean, I remember we had a house on the Illinois side that was around $1 million that we sold. I'm not sure how long ago. The one that I said I would have bought, the Dolan home back down the road. Jean, Lynn, that had a pool in the backyard.
Oh, yeah. Over Moline.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that home, beautiful home. Yeah. And she was a beautiful decorator and she had beautiful things in her home. Gorgeous. However, it would not show well in pictures. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't let her get away with everything, but I did kind of step back a little because I kind of got that little bit of, she did have a professional decorator come in, which is great. But again, the professional decorator's decorating your
Sometimes
house.
They kind of overdo it too.
Right. Decorating their house, right? They're not decorating them it's not like they're doing it as a model home to sell for a builder. They're decorating
specific to those people.
So I let her get away with some things. And when we got the pictures back, this was again another aha moment. Don't let people, do this to you if you just stay behind what you say.
Yeah, you're right. I should have listened to you.
Yeah. She's like, Andrea, gosh, why did you let me? I should have moved that. You told me I should have, and why did you not? And the picture looked fine. It wasn't like it wasn't a horrible thing, or I would have really stood my ground harder. But it was just again that moment of, you know what, they're hiring us for a reason. So you stand behind that. That's why you're there. You're the expert.
And 9 times out of 10, there's a few times when it's sentimental, or they really think they're great decorators, so they don't want to listen to what you have to say. But 9 times out of 10,
then I say you can call PT. No,
they're going to listen, right? And they're going to respect that they want to get their home sold, so they will do it.
Right. And every time we sit down for a listing consultation and we get to this point in the presentation, it's like, your house is going to be bare. It's going to look like no one lives here. And, the benefit of it is that people can picture them living in the home, right?
Yep.
And so, you might love that orange circle sun
rug
art thing that's hanging on the wall, but it takes away from the room, right?
Yep.
You've got that huge L couch that's sitting in the living room that you have a huge living room, but it looks tiny because you've got this massive couch sitting in there. So it's about making sure that you set up the home for people to be able to picture themselves living in the home. That's the biggest thing that I've always gotten from staging and try to explain to people. It's like, hey, I get it. I understand that, you love this, and you can put it up when pictures are done. But let's just kind of, make sure that we set this up that people can picture themselves living there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No.
So now the next step, now that we're past staging and we're getting into pictures now, like obviously pictures have changed so much over the years that when I got in the business, we used to take pictures with our iPhones or our cameras, and we'd have 3 to 4 pictures, and that would be it. Because
12. The MLS allowed 12 when I got in the business.
12.
With you, 12.
You used to do.
Yeah.
Oh, I
12.
did. I have a good story about that too.
So what should a seller expect in terms of pictures? I mean, obviously still shots, obviously a professional, but what other kinds of pictures are important on homes so the buyer knows what the home looks like before they go to it?
I feel like this is an interview session, PT. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, but it's good to walk through the process and kind of understand it. I mean, there's new technology coming out every single day, allowing people to. And COVID was a big thing, right? That kind of progressed that quite a bit. But we've got these 3D tours that you're able to now literally walk through the home without being in the home. So that's a huge thing. Drone photography might come into play if you're in a specific area located near. For us, a couple examples. We've got some golf courses that are around.
Or you have a really unique lot.
Exactly. Private. So it gives you an idea. Instead of just having that front shot of the house, and you're like, all right, now I need to go on Google Maps and I need to kind of bounce around and see what it kind of looks like before you want to get in there. Because most of the time, if someone's taking the time to look at the house, they're pretty interested in the house.
Yeah, if they've seen all the pictures and you have it all out there, it's a huge time saver. So then you don't have to worry about most people that are going to come look at the house, and especially the nicer, higher end ones. They've already seen pretty much everything inside. They just need to verify it then.
Well, and I mean
that they like the feel.
The thing is too, I always have this saying, pictures lie. Okay. And as your listing agent, I want them to lie in a good way. If we made your house look so nice when we staged it and the photos, that they get to your house and then they tell us all the negatives, which we were fully aware of, but we were just trying to make sure that we were marketing it appropriately. That's one thing, right? I mean, we'll work through that. But if they're not coming to your house because, which we can tell, I mean, and you can tell too, if you go online, well, on some of the websites, they show views, but we can definitely see on the backside how many views and how much activity we're getting on a listing. If we're getting views and activities,
those are like showings.
Yeah,
really
right. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But nobody's calling you to actually view the home in person. Either A, your photos and your staging sucks, or your own price. Those are the two things. So photos it's a 24-hour open house. The other thing you have to consider too is a lot of times buyers, especially in today's crazy busy world, they're, have crazy schedules where they only have, certain times that they can look at homes. So it's better if they can fully vet those homes online. So when you have the, like PT said, the 3D tours, you do the walkthrough tours, your agent does some reels, so you get more of the personal feel of the property, and the professional photography as well. They really know, that they probably pretty much know that that's the house, unless there's something seriously wrong when they get there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if they're coming from another area, and let's say they're in town for a weekend, they want to really narrow those. I mean, I remember the days when we would have relocation clients and we would literally show, and this is no joke, people, in like a 24 to 48 hour period, we would probably show 20 to 25 houses to people. Yeah. How does that buyer even know what in the world they're looking at?
They don't, that there weren't the pictures.
Yeah.
They couldn't eliminate these.
Well, and the other thing is too, and having an agent that is a full-time agent, I really stress that too. You want a full-time realtor, but they a lot of times are in homes that you maybe are looking at online. So luckily for you, agents that don't do all these things for your sellers, if we've been in a home and we know it's a good home for our buyer, we're going to say,
look at it.
Yeah.
Not the opposite.
Right? Yeah, right. We're like, hey, I know the picture sucked, but look at it, and that's just something that you do as a service buyer, but we're not talking about buyers, we're talking about listings. So yeah, I mean, the photos are a huge thing. It's 24-hour open house. It's very important. Part of the reason why you're getting paid a commission as a listing agent is to market the property. Yep. So again, we're full service in what we do, and we include our stager, and we include, our professional recommendations. We include the professional photographer and everything that's needed for your property, in addition to our knowledge and expertise and the other marketing things we do.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would highly encourage anybody that's looking to sell their home to log on our website and look at our pictures, look at the marketing of the property. It's top notch. I mean, and I give a lot of credit to Andrea for setting up those systems that it just looks really nice online.
Well, and PT, you mentioned the 3D Matterport, which for you it's always been there, right? But for us, we started doing that in like it was like 1920, and it was quite expensive to 2019, 2020 is when we started doing them on our listings. 2018,
1920. I've seen some houses that are built in 1920. That'd be pretty impressive.
That'd be pretty impressive. Yeah.
Anyway,
black and white back then.
And it's one of the reasons that COVID year, the actual COVID year, we had one of our best years ever, and there was a lot of agents that were dead in the water. And I'll tell you the reason why is because we had already done. There was only probably 3 or 4 of us agents in the Quad Cities that were doing that at that time, and we had so many people calling us, other agents saying, "How do you do that? What is that?" Right? But that goes back to us always kind of trying to stay ahead of. We would go to trainings outside of the area, and they were doing those in a lot of the bigger areas, like when we go to CRS conferences and things like that. So we learned that. So that was a great benefit for us because, like you just said, when people weren't allowing showings. I mean, it's like they were in the house without being in the house. So it's super great.
Yeah, I remember when I got into the business, virtual tours were just getting popular. Like when the World Wide Web was just.
We need shirts that say World Wide Web.
Yeah. When that was just getting going, and the early versions of that were so funny. It looked like you were looking at a fishbowl. It's amazing.
I forgot about those.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing how far that's come. Where when you're doing the 3D Matterport, it's like you're walking through the house.
Yeah.
But
I think you forgot a step though about. Well, maybe you're going to get to that, but I feel like we probably would have determined price by now, right? And I think we should talk a little bit about
let's go back to pricing. You're exactly right. So do you need an appraisal? Because you hear that.
No.
I would agree with you, PT. So if you have a really good real estate agent that knows the market, the realtors that know the market very well are a step ahead of the appraisers. We're not saying that we're better than that.
No,
but we are out there in the market currently looking at homes. Everything they're looking at is older data. So that's why I'm saying that we probably have, as agents, we probably have a little bit better pulse in the market. Quite frankly, I get a lot of calls from a lot of appraisers that want my opinions on houses that we have sold, or they're like having problems with an appraisal, and they'll say, "Hey, what do you think about this comp? What do you think about that comp?" And it's a compliment, but it's also smart that they know that we're out in the market every day.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so that is a big thing. Like, so it goes back to when you said PT, it doesn't really matter your years of experience. That goes back to if you are an agent that doesn't have as many years of experience, tag along on showings with other agents. Look at the inventory, because that's the only way I mean, we used to have realtor tours, which have kind of faded away. They still do happen, but I mean, the bigger thing is going with an agent. Like if you're, in our office, especially, I mean, anytime anybody wants to, any of the agents that are in there that have not as many years under the belt, jump in the car with somebody and they know that and they do that, because there's nothing harder than comping out a house for a seller and you have no idea what the inside of the neighborhood. And you were so good about that, and when you're interning with us and all that, just getting to know the market, right?
And I've also had it where, which I really think is neat, is like on a unique property, right? That you're like, gosh, I'm struggling with this. Just saying, hey, would you mind if I bring over another agent that I want to get what they really think too, like any kind of advice, and especially when you're on a team, right?
Right.
You never want to cross that agency thing, right? Where you're really talking price, but on a team like we have, which is great, is that if you go out to a property PT and you're like, gosh, I'm really struggling with this, I would like another one of my team members, and it's just another price opinion on it, right? I mean, there are some unique ones that we're even like racking our brains, like, oh, what do we price this one? Yeah.
Well, and that's the yin and the yang of being a husband and wife that sell real estate together.
We do that together.
Yeah. So people are always like, well, when do you think you'll have pricing? And I'm like, well, here's how it works for us. Brad's going to do his market analysis. I'm going to do a market analysis, and then
Then we'll be about 20,000 apart, and we'll figure it out.
Or more. And then we have what we call literally pricing wars. It's like storage wars, but it's pricing wars. And Brad and I like fight it out. And I mean, there's times that we should, at one of these times we do this next time for a client, let's record that session so that they can hear the discussion that went into us.
Or there's been sometimes when I said, I knew you shouldn't have let me price it at that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then
Or
there's
I'm
other times I'm like, well, you were right.
Say that again.
You were right.
But it is so true. Pricing is so important. And there's the saying, right? That you get the most amount of money for your house typically the first 30 days it's on the market.
No question. And that's always been the rule. Even back in a normal market, that once you go past that 30-day mark, it's a different deal where you've had a lot of your very interested buyers already through. And now you're just, once you go past the 30 days, it just kind of trickles in.
And PT, when you're out with buyers right now and you're looking at a home that's on the market over 30 days, what is the conversation?
Well, these days, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, well, exactly. And it's important to note too. I mean, we are in our current market, we are seeing homes sit for more of an average of a little over a month. But so it's important to say, okay, some of these homes are sitting for a little bit longer, but for the majority of the time, if they haven't sold, there's something either wrong with the home, it's not priced correctly. And so that's when we step in and we look at it ourselves and report back and give our opinion. Or it's just, there's just some competition, which there's pockets in our market that has some rich competition. But for the majority of it, it's not priced right.
That's usually the number one is price.
And so a good agent, and again, if you're this is another thing I would say. If you feel, and I'm going to speak this from personal experience, there we go. When you said, you don't need an appraisal, I would concur with that. To list your home, you do not need an appraisal. As long as you are in agreement with your realtor on pricing or pretty close, right?
Yeah.
And, or you really, really trust your realtor, right? Someone you've worked with multiple times. If it's someone that you're like, you don't really know them and you're listing your house with them and they're telling you a number and you don't think it's correct, then either A, get a second opinion, which I hate to say that because then it's like you have another agent that looked at your house and discussed pricing with, and then it's out in the world because if they don't list your house.
Almost the appraisal is a good idea if you're both kind of stuck.
Well, and the reason why I say this is so when Brad and I sold our last home before we moved into the one we're in now, we were realtors. We owned our own home and we were realtors and we could not agree on a price. And this was before you were in the business with us. I think you were still in college, PT, right? Maybe first year.
Interned, but yes, not fully.
Yes. And so Brad and I were $50,000 apart in our pricing on our house. So we called our good buddy, Mr. Bloomberg, who's an appraiser in our marketplace. And we said, hey, can you appraise this for us? And he said, well, how far are you guys apart or what's your numbers? Like, nope, we're not telling you our numbers. But we were emotionally, and that's the other reason why you should hire a realtor, because we're emotionally invested in our property. And so we thought, are we too emotionally invested? I know that we've done a lot of updates to our property, but is my value, of course, I was higher and Brett's lower. But who was right?
you were on that one because
Thank
we
you.
ended up getting a full price offer.
The appraiser said you can get that all day
Yeah.
long, and that's what we listed at. We got full price offer.
I think that's pretty interesting to actually put in perspective too, because you'll see once in a while a listing come across your desk, and it's either owned by an agent or whatever, and sometimes they sit long, and you wonder. It's that emotional.
It
attachment.
is the emotional attachment. We all have it.
Even if you're in the business and you live and die by you can't be emotionally attached to this. It's worth all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
But you live in the home. You put money into the home. And so.
And you do see that. You'll see some agents' homes here. It's like you're a realtor and your home's not worth that. There's no way.
Right. And it's like it's just interesting to kind of put that in perspective. Is that we all have this emotional attachment to, whatever we own, and
which goes back to that's why you shouldn't sell your home for sale by owner. That you're too emotionally attached to that.
Right. And to go back to pricing, I think what I want to just echo home on that when you're selling your home is that, we knew, so even though we were emotionally attached to our home and we had a disagreement on pricing, we knew that it was very important that we priced our home appropriately to make sure that we maximize what we got out of it. So, and that is the thing I just think I want to, is just, if you're a seller, overpricing your home is it's the kiss of death. The kiss of death.
Let's not try it higher. Because
you can, but I'm not going to try it with you higher.
Exactly.
So.
The market
try by yourself.
won't allow it to sell for lower than what's worth.
And we call that, just the other thing I want to talk about too, we call that in our industry, we call that buying a listing. If you're a realtor, so if let's say we interview for your listing and we think that it's not worth what you think, and there's a large enough gap there that we decided that we're not going to work together, and another agent comes in and they list it for that number or higher, and it sits and sits and sits, that's what we call buying a listing, because they know darn good and well that it's not worth that. They just want to get your listing
and then drop the price. And then you end up getting a lot less.
Yes, and that's a disservice to the client. So careful of the buying the listing people. Okay.
So now we have gone from the call to now we're all the way through the pictures because we went back to pricing, but now we're through the pictures. Now we're lifting up the curtain and we're going live on the market. Let's go to PT to talk about some social media. What do we do to advertise the home?
Well, there's
on social media.
There's a lot of different opinions on social media and listing posts. Some people will say, "Oh, you shouldn't be, don't just put up, that you listed a home," this kind of stuff. But there is benefits, to utilize those platforms in the right way. So whether that's and the great thing is you'll see different videos come out all the time, and that's the most important thing, because you want to showcase the unique things about that home that's going to make the home sell. So when we approach this, you might have an amazing view out of your backyard. You might have a private lot. You might have a sweet basement. So what we try to do on top of all of these amazing photos that we do, we want to capture people's attention immediately on social media. So we'll cook up a quick video and then we'll post it out that hey, we just listed this home. This is the great things about it. And then what we'll want to do is then funnel all the people that are interested in the home to our website or to our lead capturing system, so we can start to work on those potential leads for the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So I just watched one this morning by our agent up in Green Lake, Wisconsin, Jeff.
That
Shedd.
video was
amazing
Jeff.
video. So what I like about good videos, I think, are that it sells a lifestyle too, right? Like entertaining. All that I was picturing the entire time was me living in that house, entertaining with the view of the lake. And he did a great job of the key transitions and the key areas of the house for like entertaining lake. And it kept going back and forth. And I could picture myself, whoever did that video did a great job in the way that they did the pictures, that it sold a lifestyle that, hey, if I move into this house, this is the way that I'm going to live in it. And that's what we have the advantage that we didn't have 25 years ago, is you can sell a lifestyle through social media.
Right. And it all boils down to that unique proposition that home obtains, and it's about showcasing it. Yep. And social media is a great tool to utilize that. So yeah, just making sure that you grab people's attention.
It's got to be quick, right, PT?
Well, yeah. if there is a 2-paragraph description, I don't read it. I just don't. I don't care. Show me it, and if it catches my attention, then
That's
I'll be
because
drawn
you're
to
a
it.
Gen Z, right?
But I think it's just the way that social media is
In general,
is crafting our minds to think and to move on. And I think it is pretty specific to my generation.
But when you just said that, PT, I didn't read any of the text. I just watched the video, which I did watch the whole thing.
Right.
Which
I watched it 3 times, Jeff.
yeah. So, but it caught me, and I didn't even have to read anything. That I knew, like whatever was in that text, I saw in the video. I'll guarantee.
Right, exactly. And the whole thing is people want to watch video. They don't care what the video is about, what it looks like, how it's produced, the quality of it. They just want to see video in front of them because it's easier to consume.
Yeah. When I actually watched, this was on the now BAM Pro Bowl or whatever, BAMX Pro Bowl today too. They were talking about how it was the broke agent. He was talking about how the videos that do not have the caption text on them, like nobody watches them. I forget what the stat was, but it was it was like 99 to 0. Like it was so crazy because he said, and I didn't think about this, but it's so true. Most people do not have the volume on their phone when they're scrolling. Right. So if you don't have any text, what is there? Unless you have some crazy first picture that makes them like, look, what the heck? Nobody's paying any attention to it. So I get what you're saying, but for the person because Jeff had some cool music and the transitions were cool, but the person who doesn't have that, I mean, that captions are good. So yes, you'll want to make sure. So I mean, if you're going to do this on your own, as a seller, you're going to want to create some social media reels so you can put out
That's right. To maximize the price of your house.
Well, and for the yes, you can pay a videographer to do the video for you to make it look amazing. But in reality, and you break it down, I mean, it's free marketing. So if you're a newer agent, go stick your iPhone up. Go stick your iPhone up and record yourself in there. Use CapCut or whatever platform you use to edit videos, and you don't have to spend a dime.
Exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. And then other little advertising things, obviously websites, which you really have to drive people there anymore. Like it's not like it used to be. Like you had mentioned, Andrea, that back when those were big. Not that you don't have to have a website, you do, but those are the people that are really interested, right? So you need to capture their attention through social media's something catchy. And then if they get onto your website and they start to look there, then they're really interested.
Right.
Really
well, in realtors, in hiring a professional, and I'll go ahead and give a little dig to the FSBO sites. I'm sorry, but they just don't have the what's the word? The knowledge, but that's not the right word I'm looking for. But like as realtors, especially the ones that are really in tune with what needs to happen in regards to social media and how you need to expose someone's listing, you're not getting that. They might put to your point, PT.
It's a very
basic,
very boxy and
but to your point, okay. So that for sale by owner company has a video done. That's probably a nice video because they hire professionals to do it. But then where do they put it? Okay, they put it on their own website. Well, nobody cares. Like, I mean, that's not where it would be the same as if you, PT, or I, or another agent only puts listing videos on their social media feed. No one's paying any attention. I mean, there's a game to it. It's an algorithm.
Well, exactly. And I would love to see what the difference is. Obviously, if you're looking for a home, you're probably going to Zillow. You're probably not going to your marketplace website to look. It's probably not I don't even think that people, like if you ask 10 people, I don't even think 3 people would tell you that they would even know that those sites were available, right? Zillow's the place to go look at a home.
But some of those FSBO sites do put their homes on Zillow.
Sure.
But when I'm talking, but it's not going on any social feeds.
Exactly. So they're going to find it through Zillow, not through FSBO. And sometimes they don't even show up on Zillow. But and that's just a whole different story for another day. But it's all about making sure that you cast the net as wide as you can. So whether that's through social media, through your websites, email marketing, it is, I think, kind of making a surge, as well as you're starting to see people send text with video and all that kind of stuff. So it's just feeding the consumer.
Videos are where
the market.
Well, and also too, like if you're in a niche, as my man Sharon says, a niche, like so for us, in Quad Cities, obviously we've talked about this before, like you can't really just only sell luxury real estate, but obviously we do tend to have a little bit higher price point than the average agent, and we are part of Real Luxury, which the great part about Real Luxury is that you are now networking those luxury high-end listings with agents throughout the world, country, world, Canada, all of the above, that also have buyers in that price point and the tools that are available within that. So you can't get that from just normal marketing. I think that's another thing. So if you have a specialty home, right, you have a luxury home,
You better go to the agents that are
work
able to
in that.
get them to get your home in front of the people that might buy your house.
No different than someone who does investment properties, like, you know, rentals and stuff like that, like in are selling them sixplexes or whatever. Like there's certain agents that specialize in that, and they have the database and the network of people to market that to properly. So I think if you have a niche type of home, then I think you need to make sure that the realtor that you're hiring works in that niche.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So now we have the offer on the house, and we're going to skip to, if you live in Iowa, you need to know where your abstract is at. So that's the book that they ask you at closing, whether the lawyer asked you, do you want us to keep this or do you want to take this with you? And you probably told them to keep it. So it's probably at the law office that you closed at.
If you live anywhere else in the entire country, you do not know.
Sure.
You do not know what an abstract is, nor do you care. And so there you go. But yes.
So that's, I wanted to go back real quick and open houses.
Got excited.
Open houses. So I skipped right down the road to get an offer that our social media is so amazing and everything's so great that we don't need open houses, right? Of course we do.
Yeah, but
for certain homes. So go ahead.
Well, first of all, let's just go back. I forgot that in the beginning, with the K&K sign and the iPhone pictures and all that. I forgot the other great thing that you should do if you're going to sell your home yourself. You should just host your own open house. Yeah. As a matter of fact, your whole family.
It's going to be totally neutral. Right?
Yeah, your whole family should be home, right? Make sure that your dog.
She's being sarcastic.
Make sure that your dog that barks all the time is there. That's a great thing. And if you like the Packers or whatever, make sure that's on really loud in the one room. And bake some cookies because that is a nice touch, really it is. But also, if you don't like your neighbors, make sure you tell everybody that comes through the house about that, because you should definitely disclose that to them, right? They need to know,
Of course.
Yeah, no. How about no? Don't be anywhere near your house for an open house. That's why you hire a realtor.
Well, they always say that three's a crowd, right? So it should be the buyer and the realtor, and that's it on a private showing. On an open house, it should be your realtor and buyers, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I think that open houses have changed so much. And for a while, they kind of went away because of COVID and the market was so crazy that there really wasn't any houses to have open houses on because there was no inventory. But now, with the new buyer agency laws and Transparency Act that came into play, you're seeing more open houses. And I think that's the reason why. It's a great opportunity for buyers to view those homes prior to, even in some of the higher price points, which we never would have recommended really to have open houses because we're like, it's just all your nosy neighbors and whatever. Right. I mean, you're legit seeing really good qualified buyers come through there because it's their way to like test the market, interview some agents and see the house before they determine who they want to make an offer on that property with. I think the biggest thing about open houses is they're not successful if you try to throw it together last minute. I think you got to make sure you have a good 3 to 5 days minimum to prep that and advertise that. I think that you have to make sure that it's in every social media outlet and every website that it possibly can be. I think PT, you've had some great success with some other ways to promote your open houses recently that has worked great for you.
Yeah. Well, the most important thing if you're hosting an open house is to just make sure that everybody knows it and make sure you're delivering a good product. So it's all about how you present it. If you're going to just send out a lousy Facebook post, then, you might get the people that are actually looking for a home. But the goal is to get as many people in there as possible because they might not be buying the home, but they might know someone that wants to buy the home, right? So, I mean, there's so many different ways and to get creative with it. I mean, people preach that you should have like a minimum of a certain amount of signs out. And people are sticking balloons and flags outside, which, might seem ridiculous, but you need to catch people's attention. Yeah. And then you just showcase the home once they get in there. That's you want them you want as many people through the front door as possible, because, like I said, they might not be specifically buying a home, but they might know someone that is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we have like a 3-step process when we do an open house. We ourselves personally, for our clients, have a 3-step process and how we launch that open house, which I won't get into all the specifics of that on here for proprietary reasons. That it is when we follow that process to the T is when we have the most success at that open house. And that's usually when it sells, So Brad, I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
What if you list a house on a Thursday and you have an open house scheduled on Saturday or Sunday, but you get an offer on Thursday? Should you cancel your open house?
More times than not, no. However, if it's an offer that you love, and it depends on the market too, right? So right now, I would say probably no, regardless. But if you get an offer that has a quick deadline on it and it's a tight market, you might want to consider going ahead with that offer. But in our current market, more times than not, it's going to behoove you to have the open house and then maybe look at the offers after the open house or on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's a case by case basis for sure.
So now we've made it all the way through all this, and we are abstract, which we just talked about, title insurance, let the lawyers handle that stuff, and then we get all the way to the appraisal part. So that's when the house has to appraise out to the value that the buyer paid, and then if it doesn't, you have to renegotiate. And then what's the last step?
The last step? In what?
The real estate transaction.
Oh, closing.
Closing.
Get the keys.
The keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that basically
get
is
all
the
your
process.
Get all your stuff out of the house and say goodbye.
Then you're all done.
I think the important thing to just kind of understand though too is that our job isn't even over when you get the keys, right? We want to build a relationship with you for years, generations, but we're going to be there once you get an offer, through inspections, through the final walkthrough, through the repair request, once you get the keys, and then onward. And so it doesn't end once you get an offer on the house.
Exactly. And that's another thing, PT, like you just brought up a good point. Inspections, I mean, those are coming back, but they're coming back.
Yeah, but that's probably for another topic.
Yeah.
I mean, this was what to do to list your house and get in the market.
But there's inspections, and then there's the appraisal, and then there is the closing. But I would agree with you. That's a whole other show on inspections and what you ought to have done and what to look for, all the rest of that. Yeah. But so that basically is the process of if you want to list your house.
Wraps it up.
What you do. So anything else you guys have?
If you have any questions, let us know. We would love to sit down and talk to you about selling your house. You got a little glimpse of what we usually do, but there's a lot more that we like to go into depth about and actually sit down and talk to you with. So
absolutely. Andrea, do you have anything else?
No. I mean, if you're an agent that wants to strengthen your listing game and you have questions about that, give us a shout. We'd love to sit down and chat.
I would agree with you 100%. Well, that's going to be a wrap.
Peace.
You mean a sold?
Sold. Ugh.